Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Hey, good evening, horror fans. Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. And this week, we're going to talk about mind control. And this is an interesting category, Matt. When we first started talking about this, when I started thinking like, this isn't, that hardcore or that horrific. But as we started to go down this path, I started thinking about, geez, your mind, your consciousness, your very sense of being is the one thing that you completely and wholly own. And to have somebody take that over or to control that against your will, that's actually pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it is. I think mind control horror can be one of the reasons, like you said, it's so horrific is this. It's so subversive and indirect, and it can be so seemingly innocuous with its attempts to just gain power over someone. They're not threatening you with brute force where you could possibly get away, or it's not like a bribery where there's some kind of situation you might be able to get out of. They're altering your perceptions of reality and changing your behavior in a way that you're not even aware of. And that can be really subtle, or it can be like overpowering, and there's all sorts of different ways to explore that idea. And I think a lot of these films do it in very interesting ways.
Yeah, we talked before about when we did the category home invasion, how awful that is, because home is such a place of comfort and such a place of where you settle with your family and you should be safe. And this actually is worse because it's inside your own head. So it's pretty cool.
It's a good form of that home invasion. It's like a possession kind of thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's a cool category. And we got a couple good movies here to talk about. Our first film, we're going to go back to 1988 and we're going to talk about They Live by horror master John Carpenter. Is this a movie you were familiar with before this?
I had seen it years ago, and I'd seen it a couple weeks ago on top of that. So this is a movie I was familiar with. I remember seeing it when I was a teenager, and then again in college, and it's something I've seen before. It's always been a fun movie to me.
It's a fun movie, and it's interesting because they take very serious topic of mind control and subliminal messaging and people being almost herded like cattle. And they put a fun tongue-in-cheek kind of wink twist on it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like John Carpenter has been interviewed about this movie a bunch of times, and he was like, it was 100% an allegory to 80s consumerism and propaganda that the government was pushing on people. And he says that it still happens to this day. He was like, that movie is still relevant to this day, and I agree 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's they do it real blatantly, but they do it in a real fun way. They do the flashbacks almost like it's like that black and white 1950s style where it's real cheesy looking, that 50s alien look. And they do it on purpose, and they have Roddy Piper, and like it's a fun movie, but has a great message. So it's a good combination of both.
Yeah, agree. I saw this movie when it first came out, and I've always enjoyed it. I thought it was very clever. It's not bloody. It's not gory. It's fun, and there's a lot of cleverness to it. But we start with our main character, as you mentioned, Roddy Piper. His name's he's a character named Nada, which is just right off the bat. It's he's a nobody.
Well, they wanted someone in the movie to be. They wanted the characters to be the working poor, right? They wanted to tell this from like the working person, the people that work paycheck to paycheck, which is more people in America than most people believe. So
yeah. Well, he's a drifter, and he comes to L.A. looking for work, and he manages to get on at a construction site where he meets a guy, Frank, kind of befriends him, and he follows him back to a shanty community that's got food and showers and basically a community of people helping each other, and it's run by a man named Gilbert. And that night, the TV's on, and they see the TV get hacked into. And a man comes through, and he's fuzzy. It's back in the day of television broadcasts where they weren't as clear as they are now. But the man comes through, and he's basically saying that the people are being controlled. There's people in power, and they're lulling us into a trance, and we got to fight back. And then he goes out. So that night, Nada, he's the kind of guy we learn quickly. He kind of watches and pays attention to everything going on around him. And he sees a street preacher and Gilbert go into a nearby church. And so the next day he goes over and follows him in, and he sees the hacker who was on TV along with the preacher, along with Gilbert, and he sees some equipment, some broadcasting equipment, and he sees some boxes.
Yeah,
and
right, and there's like a satellite set up, and they're recording what seems they're making it trying to seem like it was a church, but it was just this. It was a recording of church music, and there's a bunch of people. There's rebels conspiring.
Yeah, there's a choir playing on a loop. Yeah. He tells Frank about it, and Frank tells him to stay out of it. He's not like Nada, who sticks his nose into everything.
Yeah, he's like, listen, he's like, stop trying to be a rebel. Like, we're here just trying to make ends meet. I've got a wife and kids I'm trying to get back to. I lost my job. Like, let's just like keep our heads down, be gray men, and just get our paychecks. Like, what are you trying to do? Get us fired? They're just trying, and which most people do in average world. Like, they just kind of put their heads down. I don't want any trouble. I just want to get my paycheck and eat my burger when I go home for dinner. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Unfortunately, later that night, the cops raid the church and the shanty, and they end up running through the shanty with a bulldozer, oblivious to all the dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of people who are holed up there. And we see the cops beating the preacher and beating the hacker. And, it's kind of an awful scene in the middle of the night. Everybody's running for cover. And the morning comes, and we see that the site is ruined. The church has smoke coming out of it. They set some kind of fire in there. And Nada goes into the church to check it out, where he finds a box of whatever they were handling and loading into the car the day before, and he takes it.
Yep.
And in the surprise twist, if you didn't know what the movie was coming, there's sunglasses.
Yeah.
And he puts a pair on, and through the sunglasses, he hides the rest of the box inside of a trash can. When he puts them on, he sees the world in black and white, and he sees subliminal messages everywhere: storefronts, billboards, magazines, and they're all driving home messages of obey, suppress independent thought, watch TV, don't think. It's just
work 8 hours a day, marry and produce. Yeah. Submit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's total,
it's Orwellian. It's 1984. Kind of. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was saying. Yep. Yeah. And he's, he keeps putting the glasses on and taking them off. And then he sees a wealthy man when he has his glasses on, and he is, like you say, that 50s style, ridiculous looking alien.
Yeah.
And he can tell that they're hiding all over amongst the humans. They're mixed in everywhere. And you notice they're usually the wealthiest, of course.
Yeah, in suits, and the one lady later's in a mink coat, right? Yeah.
The woman in the pharmacy, he's taking them on and putting them off, and he's like, well, this one here's real ugly.
Says, lady, you look like you dropped your head in the cheese dip in 1950. I was like, what?
He's going on and on. But she, being one of the upper elite aliens, quickly takes her watch and makes a quick call through her watch and says, I've got one who can see. So there's clearly a deep, deep conspiracy here, and
he's come out of the Matrix, right? And like now they're aware of it. They're like, all right, we can't have this.
So he runs, and the cops grab him, and both the cops are aliens. He kills them and takes their guns. We learn that the aliens will die just like people would. Mm-hmm. He goes into a bank and he starts shooting aliens. Well, first he has the line you and I laughed about when we were talking about this. I came to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Yeah, still one of my favorite lines in any movie ever.
It's just ridiculous. No one would ever actually say it, but it's.
And he wrote that. He wrote down a bunch of lines he would like use for like wrestling promos, and he gave it to John Carpenter. He's like, I can use any one of these if you want. And John Carpenter read that, and he was like, "Oh, we got to use this." Yeah. And he was like, "You're saying that, yeah?" So they used it.
Yeah, the humor is never far away in this movie. It's a next one-liner down the road.
Yeah.
Outside, so he starts shooting aliens inside in the bank, and he runs out the back door. And outside, he's confronted by a human cop, and he doesn't kill this one. He just tells him to run off. And at this point, he abducts a woman named Holly, and he hides in her car and forces her to drive him out of the area. So she sneaks him out of there at gunpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, spoiler alert: this movie's almost 40 years old. She just looks like a bad guy right away. Just right away, you can tell. I'm like, you don't trust her. You know,
her eyes. She has a light red hair.
Yeah. She had the evil.
Yeah. Like, are those contacts, or do people really look that evil?
Yeah, she had that evil, like, Days of Our Lives 1991 look.
Yeah, it was crazy. But he insists on going back to her place. He's looking for somewhere to lay low. This is all new to him, and he's just trying to get his mind around it. We find out that she works at the TV station that they keep cutting into the broadcasts. And you're thinking, oh, this might actually go somewhere. But before he can use that information, he tricks him and pushes him through the glass door, where he falls down a steep hill. And then she calls the cops.
Yeah, and it was actually a great hit. She did a reverse backhand with the wine bottle, and it was actually like, she didn't just hit him off the head; she just spun her whole body around and hit him. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, he took quite a tumble.
Yeah. I wonder if he actually did that.
His glasses fell off, and they remain in her apartment. So, he hides for the night. He kind of crawls under a overpass, and he's got a headache from wearing the glasses. He's damaged from getting hit and falling down this hill, and doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah, he mentions later on to Keith David, he said, if the longer you wear them, the more it gives you a headache. And when you take it off, it's like coming down from a drug, he says. So you got to, like, careful how much you use it.
Yeah. The next day, he locates Frank at the construction site where they work together, and Frank wants nothing to do with him. He thinks he's a killer, and he's like, yeah, how many people did you kill? What is wrong with you? Stay away from me.
Yeah.
So he goes back to find the glasses because he lost his, and the trash was already picked up, and he has to climb into the back of the trash truck to fish them out. Now, with all these bug-eyed aliens and super glasses, the most unrealistic thing to me was how clean this trash was. It was all dry cardboard and shredded paper.
Right.
No, going through the downtown streets of LA, that is not what the trash is going to look like.
Right. Yeah. You're going to poke yourself with needles and food
and garbage and stank and flies.
Yeah.
And
diapers.
This is the cleanest trash you would ever see. But he fishes out the glasses. Yeah. And when he gets out of the trash truck, Frank is there, and he just tells him, hey, I got 1 week pay for you. It's the best I could do. And he tells him, hey, look, you got to put these glasses on, man. You're not going to believe this. And he refuses. And then they proceed to have one of the longest one-on-one fights in cinema history.
I think it's like 6 or 7 minutes, maybe even 8. Oh.
It's like an epic battle. Every time you think it's over, it's not over. It just keeps going on and on. But it's a pretty good fight.
It's a good fight. And not only that, it's actually a cool allegory because he's not beating him up because he hates him. He's trying so hard to convince him that he needs to see this. He needs to see what's really going on, that he's willing to, like, get in a fight with him over it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is actually part of an interesting allegory to the movie.
And neither one actually hates the other. In fact, there's a scene in the middle of the fight where he swings at him with a pipe, and he breaks his car. He breaks the car window. And they both, like, they stop and laugh before they resume,
he's like, I'm so sorry, dude. Yeah.
But it's a good fight.
Yeah, it is.
He finally gets control of Frank enough to put the glasses on him. And Frank is, of course, overwhelmed. Like, what is going on here? Yeah. So they kind of are in it together now, and they sneak off to get a place to stay and look for a plan. They both just got paid, so they get a seedy motel room to hole up in. Mm-hmm. And they happen to run into Gilbert, who is happy that they're both in the know, and tells them about a meeting that night at 11 o'clock where they got more information to share. So there is a network of people who are aware of what's going on and trying to make it right.
And so that's really what he was spying on. That's when we're like, oh, that's what they were doing. They weren't bad guys. Those were the rebels. That's when we kind of put it together.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they go to the meeting that night. The people in charge have created contact lenses, which work better than the glasses because they less of a headache, more, not the drug letdown that you talked about.
And it's also like they can break into their places and it's not obvious that they're wearing contacts or like sunglasses. They can just see everyone.
Yeah, you don't look stupid walking around at midnight with sunglasses on.
Yeah, it's a good way. It's a good way for them to kind of like plot device, so they don't have to keep wearing the glasses the whole movie, right? Like in the action scenes later.
Yeah, it's like when somebody gets their hand cut off, and rather than have to do the special effect of a missing hand the whole movie, they give them a prosthetic hand and put a glove on it, and then it's just a gloved hand for the rest of the movie. Right. And we also find out that the aliens are ruining the environment. Global warming is part of their plot. They're making our planet more like their planet, and they're also recruiting humans over to their side by promising wealth and power. And a shocking number of humans are willing to go with them for the simple promise of a promotion and a raise.
Yeah, for agency, right? It's like, oh, you're just going to let me live my life anyways? Okay, cool. I want, give me some money, and I'll just do whatever you say. Let me live comfortably.
Yeah. Holly shows up at the meeting. She, found the glasses and kind of apologizes to Frank, and they seem to have like a moment where it's almost like a flirty, like they're going to be together type of moment. And the wall explodes right next to them, although they're uninjured at all.
It's like styrofoam wall just came down.
Yeah, they were the two people nearest the wall, and they walked away unscathed. But the SWAT team is there, and there's a big shootout, and there's just guns going on both sides, but the humans are losing badly. Frank has one of the alien watches that they had acquired and had given him, and he figures out how to open it, and it opens a portal where they disappear through. Him and Nada go through together.
Which is also an interesting plot device, because they couldn't figure that out for years, and within 30 seconds he just figures it out.
Yeah. Well, you're trapped at the end of an alley with guns coming at you. You tend to figure stuff out.
Just try everything, right? Yeah.
So they end up in the alien lair. Basically, they're walking around. It seems almost like a clean version of the sewer system, but it's just they're transported to the alien lair.
Yeah.
And they find there's like a big dinner going on, like a roast, where they're celebrating.
It's like a ball. Yeah.
Yeah. They're celebrating the humans who have been converted, and they're talking about the average wage of the people in this room has gone up 39% this year, and everybody's like applauding.
Thank you, stockholders, and everyone's like their stockholders meeting or something like that. Like, thanks to our new alliance with the people that to the aliens.
Yeah. Well, they think so. A guy runs into him, and he thinks they're new recruits, and he's wearing a tuxedo, and he's like, "Geez, guys, you could have dressed for the occasion now that you can afford it."
Wasn't that George Buck?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that was George Buck from earlier in the movie. He's at that like that commune with them, and he has a couple scenes, and he was in the very beginning. He has like one or two scenes. He's not really. He's all scruffy looking, the classic homeless looking guy. And he cleans up. Yeah, he cleans up later, and he goes with them. He goes with the aliens, and
he clearly
shows up and notices them.
Yeah, he clearly acted like he knew them, but I did not make that connection.
He's got like it's real quick in the beginning. He's kind of seeing it because he's dressed up as a homeless guy being George Buck. You know what I mean?
Now that you said it, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. He thinks they're new recruits, so he's going to show them around. And they walk around and they see the portal that aliens arrive and leave from, and they end up at the TV station that is broadcasting the blocking signal. And it's the TV station that Holly works at.
Yeah.
So they have a bit of a shootout, and they figure they got to get to the roof to destroy the satellite. Oh, they encounter Holly in the stairway, and she goes with them. On the roof, Holly reveals her true colors. She was on the alien side all along, as you said, from her evil-looking eyes.
Yeah.
She kills Frank. and she has the gun on Nada as he's about to destroy the satellite that's broadcasting the signal that's blocking everyone from seeing the truth. And helicopters come up and he's surrounded. He's got a gun to him. He's got helicopters pointed at him, and he's trapped.
Yeah, and she says the most classic 80s line ever. She's like, you can't win.
Of course. And whenever you say that, you know somebody's going to find a way to win.
Yeah.
He doesn't really win. He shoots Holly and he turns and he shoots and destroys the satellite as the choppers open fire on him, and he's just riddled with bullets. But he dies.
Yeah, he sacrifices himself for everyone, right? For the greater good.
He dies destroying the satellite. And then so it's kind of a sad moment, but they don't dwell on it. It quickly cuts to the rest of the world where the illusion is now broke and everyone can now see the aliens. There's guys sitting in bars that suddenly look like, these weird looking aliens. And there's all kinds of scenes of quick cut-in scenes of aliens in the world being exposed now. And it's kind of funny. And I don't know if you caught this, but there's a great cutaway where in the bar they're watching TV, and it's Siskel and Ebert. And they're bashing John Carpenter and George Romero.
Yes, I took a note of that.
But now we see Siskel and Ebert are aliens. So
yeah, and he says, he was like the guy on TV. He's like talking about how they're sick of the filth from people like Romero and John Carpenter, and they're the ones infecting us with the filth. So like they're blaming, right. They're trying to say, hey, it's these artists that are making these films that are the problem, not us consumerists that are selling you products, right?
Yeah, but it's just so funny because it's like a great jab back at Siskel and Ebert, but they're part of the alien race.
Yeah, they're aliens. Yeah, I thought that part was brilliant. They did a lot of stuff that was just like fun and brilliant. And I mean, it's a B movie. It feels like a B movie, but it's a really high, it's just really high level entertainment. I think they hit the nose on a lot of things the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost hard to classify this as horror. It's all, even though it's a John Carpenter film. He's done a lot of, Escape from New York and Starman and things that are horror adjacent, if you will. And this is really more sci-fi, social commentary type of thing. But it's still it's a terrific movie, and it fits our category perfectly.
But I mean, like you said, the category. I mean, the idea of an alien race mass mind controlling an entire society is horrific, right? So I mean, it's not a scary movie for all intents and purposes, but it's a horrific idea. So
yeah, no, that's very true. Our second film in this category is more of a modern film. It's Get Out from 2017, directed by Jordan Peele, and most of us are familiar with the success of this movie. It was a huge runaway hit. It actually had Academy Award nominations for Best Picture and Best Screenplay, and really put Jordan Peele on the map as a horror director. And it deserves a lot of that accolades.
Yeah, 100%. I remember seeing this in the theaters when it came out, and I was impressed. They live and Get Out they're very diametric as far as like the mind control. Like, whereas one of them, They Live, is about government control and like more of a social commentary. Well, this is social commentary as well, but it's more about on the individual level, and it deals really with like racism, but it deals with it in a very interesting way. It's not like the aggressive, going to burn your house down racism. It's very, very socially passive. Like, I would have voted Obama for a third term, or he tells the black guy, "Hey, do you play basketball?" You know what I mean? Just like very, very subtle, social, like passive racism, and just inserts that into the movie where it creates enough tension where you get involved in the story. And then once you get involved in these characters, you're like, what the heck is going on with this? And I think they hit a home run.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant movie in a lot of ways. I think they took a lot of, being a lifelong horror fan, I think they used a lot of standard horror devices, and then they wrapped around this social aspect of the black experience in America, which I wouldn't pretend to know, to speak to.
Right.
But it gives such a twist and such a new perspective on some standard horror, parts that we've seen before, but it's done in a completely different way that really it can be eye-opening, I think.
Yeah, it is. And they like, even when they're using like the idea of hypnosis, they kind of make a joke where like Chris is kind of like, what are you gonna do? Put a watch in front of me and tell me I'm getting sleepy? And like she's just like, it doesn't work like that. Like, so even they're kind of like kind of being self-aware of like the hypnosis idea. But it's a much more direct version of hypnosis, which I thought was really cool to use.
Yeah, and some of rewatching it, I noticed a couple things. One, there's some violence in the movie. Much of it is off screen, just out of frame. It's not a blood and guts movie, although it certainly does not shy away from the violence. It's just very
towards the end it gets real violent. Yeah,
it's even then it's very tasteful in how it shows it. It's not, it doesn't show heads being busted open and things of that nature.
Right, scanners.
It really handles its violence, I think, delicately and with care. I thought that was pretty impressive. It's everybody wants to smash a head open on a movie. I do anyways. But they were more selective in how they delivered their violent message, and I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah, and they do a really. I think the acting in this job is the acting in this movie is phenomenal. I think they do a lot of tension with like a lot of close-ups of people's facial expressions changing for different conversations, and the way they use the musical score to go with that, to kind of direct the audience in like the tension. And they never really just come out and say things where they don't treat the audience like they're stupid.
Right.
This movie is actually has very intelligent narration, which is another thing I think people just find very refreshing, because it's so frustrating when you go see a movie and it's almost like the character looks right into the camera and tells you what's happening.
Right.
It's pretentious. It's just like, ugh. They don't do that at all in this movie, but like you follow along very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. The movie starts with a black man in the suburbs, and he's lost. And we see him get abducted and thrown into the trunk of a car, and that's it. And then it cuts to an interracial couple. Our main character, Chris, and his white girlfriend, Rose, and they're going to meet her white parents. And Chris is concerned if they know he is black, and Rose assures him they are not racist. And she uses the line that you mentioned that's repeated over in the movie, where
at least twice that I can think of.
My dad would have voted for Obama a third time if he could have. And that's like a standard, white demonstration of how I'm not racist type of statement,
like a virtue signal thing. Yeah. And it's almost like, you didn't have to say that. Why'd you say that? Yeah.
They arrive at it's a very nice estate, and along the way they do hit a deer, and there's a little racial tension moment where she's driving and the cops come to put the deer out of its misery type of thing, but they start grilling him, and she has to stand up and be like, what are you doing? Well, we have the right to ask for his license. He wasn't driving. He doesn't even need a license to ride in the car. It's just it did a good job of showing you, a glimpse maybe of what that life might be like, unfortunately.
That, and not only is that done well, but it's actually double montage, because actually when you find out at the end of the movie, that scene's actually even smarter than you have to watch the movie twice, because when you go back and watch the movie, you'll see why she actually did that.
Yeah,
because she can't have any paper trail of them being together. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's right. Actually, it's pretty
your
brilliant.
Impression of her is she's a great girlfriend at this point. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But she couldn't have a paper trail of being with him at any point, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yep. No, it makes sense. The parents are friendly but awkward. And he uses the line again, I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could have. It's just it's a little
and
awkward.
He's awkward. He says my man a few times, like, hey, my man. Yeah. And even she's like, I've never heard him say that before. And it's like, he's like, I get it. I get it. Like,
it's okay. Yeah. So they're trying to be friendly, but it's you can tell it's forced and it's a little awkward. And there's also
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. There's also a very odd acting black groundskeeper and black maid. And the father even makes a point of saying, he goes, yeah, I hate how that looks. He's like, rich white people with black servants. He's like, but they were on with my parents and I didn't want to let them go. And,
he's kind of like implying they're paid well. We've known him for years. That's all this is. And Chris is like, all right, okay. Like,
yeah. The mother offers to hypnotize Chris to help him quit smoking, and he declines. And we meet the brother. The brother comes home, and he is at dinner. He is like stereotypically obnoxious and drunk, and it's just an awkward dinner. And they go upstairs, and Rose seems appalled to Chris how her family is acting. She mentions her brother being, she calls him, douchebag, and she's like, my dad with my mans. It's like, this is just unbearable.
Yeah. Just being very apologetic. And he's like, listen, that's why I told you, that's why we had this conversation. I wanted to make sure, like socially, like, he's kind of like, I get it. This is what I expected.
At this point, they seem to be on the same page where she's supporting him. And he's like, no, look, it's, we leave here. It's you and me. Like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. In the middle of the night, Chris goes outside to smoke, and we see the awkward groundskeeper running weird sprints, fully dressed through the yard, and he runs right past Chris as if he was invisible. And so Chris is getting a little.
There's a corner route, runs right up to him, and then like he's making eye contact the whole time.
Yeah,
and then,
it looks like he's running at him, like he's attacking, and then he just turns and keeps running around the yard.
Which is a great device to create tension, because I remember seeing it in the theaters going, what the heck? And then then he just left. It was like, all right.
Yeah, it was crazy. Then we see Chris is looking up, and the maid is upstairs in the window, and she's looking in a mirror, and it looks like she's talking to herself. He's like, okay, these are some odd people here.
Yeah, what is going on? Yeah.
On Chris's way back in, the mother corners him. She's up and she's in, her robe, and asks him to sit with her. And she starts asking him questions while she's circling her spoon on the rim of her teacup, and talks about hypnotizing him. And she actually has him relive some awful memories of him being a kid and his mom dying. And he ends up paralyzed in the chair. And there's tears running down his face, and it's very well acted.
It's to this day, I think it's a very famous scene. It's like, do you see that scene with the tears coming down his eyes? It's even on some of the posters. Like, it's become like somewhat of an iconic scene in horror. I really like it. And that sound, whenever you hear that sound of the tea, the spoon going against the ceramic now, very subtly, I like that. That was very well done.
He actually falls, it appears that he falls through the chair, but he's going down into a black space that she calls the sunken place. And from the sunken place, it's like you're in space. It's all darkness around you, except there's one little portal where you can see back into the real world, but it seems like it's 50 feet away, and you have no shot of getting to it.
It looks like a movie theater screen.
Yeah, a tiny one, or you're way far away, yeah. And so he wakes up in bed. And you're like, okay, was that real? Not real? The next day, there's a big party at the estate, and it's an annual event, and it's full of older white people. And they all seem oddly fascinated with Chris, and they say awkward things. Do you play basketball? One guy's talking about golf, and he's like, let me see your swing. And he's like, I know Tiger Woods. I love Tiger Woods. It's like the most
all those social. Yes. Yeah.
So just in general, everybody's making awkward comments, and they all seem fascinated with Chris.
Yeah. Very weirdly, almost like he's some kind of prospect.
One woman grabs his arm, like feeling his muscles, and it's like, it reminds you of a movie where somebody's being auctioned off, or somebody's buying livestock.
Yes.
It's just so awkward. He does see a mixed couple, and it's a younger black man with an older white woman, and we recognize him as the man who was abducted in the beginning, but he's acting and talking like an old white man. He doesn't talk like when we saw him. He's dressed like he's from the 1920s, and it just seems like a different person.
Got a straw hat on. Yeah.
Chris does talk to the groundskeeper, who just grins oddly at him, but does confirm the events of last night were real. And Chris is a little upset that he was hypnotized against his will, but he does not have any desire to smoke. So he's, thinking maybe it would work well for him.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I guess that did work.
Yeah. It's still pretty intrusive if without your permission, but then he meets a blind art dealer who is at this party and is actually familiar with Chris's photography work.
Yeah. And then he's actually familiar with him. He's like, wait, you're Jim Hudson from Hudson Galleries? And he's like, well, the one and only. And he's like, he sits down with him. He's kind of happy to meet him,
Yeah. And he's the first person there that doesn't say anything dumbly racist. He just has a normal conversation with him,
Yeah, he has they have a nice little interaction, and like he's like, that Chris walks away going, okay.
Chris goes inside to check his phone, and he finds it unplugged from the charger and dead. And as he goes in through the house and he goes up the stairs, there's like everybody like just stops their conversation and watches once he's gone out of sight.
Yeah, like they're listening to what he's doing. Yeah,
it's really real very creepy surreal vibes.
Yeah. And by the way, he had every right to be mad, because there's nothing more infuriating than when you've been charging your phone all day and you walk in the room and it's still dead. You're like, wait a second, I had this on the charger for 6 hours.
Yeah. He complains to Rose and he's like, somebody touched my phone. They unplugged it. It's dead. What's going on here? And he plugs it in, gets enough charge. He calls his buddy Rod, who we've talked to a couple times on the phone. And he is the comedy relief of the movie.
Yes, it's the only comedy in the movie.
Hysterical.
Yeah, he's good.
And so he kind of tells him what's going on, and he saw some stuff, and he's like, I told you don't go there. What do you expect from a bunch of white people? And Rose must have said something, because at this point, Georgina, the maid, comes in and apologizes for accidentally unplugging his phone. She said she was just dusting things off and must have knocked it. She's grinning, but she's also tearing up as she speaks. And she really presents a picture of somebody torn in mental anguish. And she really did a great job with her facial expressions.
Yeah, she did, because he says something. He was like, I just get really uncomfortable in a house full of white people sometimes. You understand that, right? And she's like, why would I understand that? And she starts like smiling and crying at the same time and kind of like breaking up. And you're like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, she did a great job, because she's both creepy and sympathetic in the same face.
Yeah,
which is not easy to do.
It's not. Yeah, like the acting was phenomenal in this entire movie.
Yeah. So he goes outside, and he has his phone with him, and he uses it to snap a picture of the black man that he met before, who was with the older white woman. And the flash on his phone triggers something. The man loses control, starts to go berserk. He lunges at him, and he says two words: "Get out."
Yeah.
And I love when they have like a little. That's where they get the title of the movie, from that one tiny scene. Yeah.
Yep. Just needed perfect. Like one little tidbit. Yeah.
The man gets subdued and ends up going inside and has a session with the mother, and he comes out completely restored to where he was before, and he apologizes and thinks he might have had a seizure, and the couple is going home, but he now talks like an old white man again.
Yeah, he's right back. And he apologized. Like, I apologize for that outburst. Yeah.
My behavior is unacceptable. He speaks weird.
Yeah. Everything's getting really bizarre. Yeah.
Chris and Rose decide to go for a walk. They just got to get away from everything that's going on. He wants to leave. He tells her, I just want to get out of here. And she agrees that they should go. Meanwhile, back at the house, we see a silent auction, and the blind art dealer wins a silent auction. And I couldn't help but wonder how he understood the cues, since it was a silent auction, and knew when and what to bid. Right? Did you think?
The only explanation I have for that is because he admits when he's first talking to Chris, he says, "I know what you're thinking, a blind art dealer. How is that possible?" And he was like, "My assistant tells me and describes everything to me." And so the only way it's possible is the assistant was sitting right next to him and telling him all the bids. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is comical. I laughed at that too. I was just like, "What?" And then I was like, "Okay, the assistant." They put that in there 10 minutes before, just to
Yeah. Well, the guy wasn't speaking Braille, so how is he getting all these bids? But he wins the silent auction for what we don't know. But at this point, we're starting to guess. So they go back to the house. The guests are all leaving, and Chris sends a picture of the man that he took the picture of. He sends the picture to Rod, and Rod recognizes him. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's Dre. That's Andre from the Hood." And he was here. Yeah, I know Andre.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, that's really weird. Wonder what happened to him to be married to an old white woman all of a sudden."
Right. Dressed like that, X miles away. Like, what? He just up and left?
Yeah. So Chris is packing his bag and they're getting ready to leave. And he opens a closet. And inside the closet, he finds a box of pictures. And they're all pictures of Rose with different black men. As well as, actually, as he's going through this big pile, there's one with her with her arm around Georgina.
Yes, yeah, it's the final one. Yeah, they're all familiar. They're all slightly familiar faces, and then at the end with Georgina, it kind of makes it go, "What?"
And it's like he knows like something's really wrong here, and he's trying to leave. And there's a great tense scene where he doesn't want to give away that he knows to Rose. So he's saying, "Where's the keys, Rose? Where's the keys? Got to get the keys, Rose." And they're trying to go down. And as he comes down the steps, the door is surrounded by the family. Yeah. He's like, "Where's those keys, Rose?" And she's like, "I'm looking." And then finally she says, "We can't let you leave."
Yeah, she was just stalling the whole time, trying to help make sure everyone got to the door. Yeah.
He makes the decision. He's going to try to force his way out of the door, and he's going to have to go through the brother who talks about MMA fighting. But before anything can really happen, the mother taps her teacup 3 times, and he's out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just falls all the way back, like boom, and just like fall, which actually is really dangerous. People can die from that. Like just suddenly fainting, that's a 6-foot drop. You know what I mean? Like people have just like fallen on the cement and cracked their head and died. It's really that simple. And so when the son wants to like pick him up like real viciously, she's like, no, we've done enough damage already. I kind of like how they acknowledge that. Like someone's just falling over, and like that's 6 feet from your head to the ground. You know what I mean? Like it was cool that they did it, because so often in the movies, like people just falling down means nothing. It's like, well, it's kind of cool that they showed the importance of just someone fainting like that. And they were like, we got to be careful. We've done enough damage.
And they need him physically intact, particularly his brain.
Right.
Which we'll find out shortly.
Which is kind of I like how they address, which is why they address it right there, which I thought was pretty cool.
As he's flat out and basically going off into space, Rose leans in and says that he was one of her favorites. And the thing that struck me about that whole, with all the pictures and then her making that statement, you do realize, as the parents who make this whole concoction and make this whole system go, part of making this work is making your daughter a whore.
Yeah, they pimped her out. Yeah.
And they don't think nothing of it. I stopped to think, I'm like, they just force her to go be with guy after guy after guy after guy after guy.
Right. Family. It's the family business. Yeah. Yeah. She's going to have to do it again. Yeah.
So to me, it just added a level of depravity to these evil people.
Yeah. And that later you will see her like eating Cheerios one by one with no milk. And it's like, yeah, that's a psychopath. Like they raised a psychopath.
Well, she had milk, but it's separate.
But she
puts the Cheerios in dry and then takes a sip of milk.
Right. And if you see anyone doing that, they're a psychopath.
No, I agree completely. Yeah, that's lunacy. We go back to Rod, who can't get through to Chris and goes to the cops. And Rod works at TSA. And there's a very funny scene where he goes to the cops and he starts telling them this story about this awful thing he may have happened to his friend. And the woman he's talking to goes and gets a couple other cops. And his first thought is they're really taking this seriously. And he starts going in, I got training, like you guys, maybe a little bit more. And he tells his story, and then they just all bust out laughing at him. And the woman's
she says, you owe me this one. I told you I'd get you. Like as if like you gotta come hear this. Tell them what you told me. Like
yeah. Then she's like, don't say I don't do anything for you.
Yeah. I think it's the funniest scene of the movie. I died laughing at that. I loved it.
Yeah. And that guy that played Rod is hysterical.
Yeah.
So he can't get through to Chris. The cops are going nowhere for him. He calls Rose, and Rose starts playing it up. It's like, oh, he left 2 days ago. He got mad and he stormed off and he left his phone and it must be dead. And then she starts immediately like Rod was always like flirty with her on the phone and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, tell me what this is really about. There's always been something between you and me.
Yeah, like why are you calling my cell phone out of nowhere all of a sudden? You've never done that. Yeah, what's really going on? Yeah, trying to throw it back on him. Yeah.
And then he, from everything he's suspecting and starting to have this bad feeling, he shuts that down immediately. And it's kind of funny. So we go back to Chris. He wakes up and he's strapped into a chair in like the parlor. And there's a video on this ancient TV of the grandfather explaining the coagula process. And then it cuts to a live video feed of the art dealer telling him what's going on. It's a video chat.
And he's telling him, he's like, you can talk to me. I can hear you.
Yeah. Two-way video chat. Even though it was on a 1974 Magnavox console TV, they somehow had it hooked up for that.
Yeah.
But the art dealer tells him that phase 1 was the hypnosis. Phase 2 is the mental prep that you're going through right now. And phase 3 is the transplant. And he says, I'm taking your body. I want those eyes. I want your eyes. Yeah. He's like, you'll remain in there. You'll be conscious, but you're going to live in the sunken place. And now you start to the weird behavior of the groundskeeper and of Georgina and the conflict and the tears. It all starts to make sense that there's another person in there fighting to get out.
Yeah. And that flash, like Logan, like when Logan, the guy with the straw hat, when he got when the flash, like kind of took him out of the trance real quick. You know what I mean? Like there was some kind of trigger. Yeah.
Yep. So he's pretty much doomed at this point, it would appear. The brother comes in to get Chris, believing, the last thing was the video cut to the teacup to knock him out again.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris goes in to get him to go in for the surgery. The art dealer's being prepped in the other room. The dad's, removing the cranial cap and getting ready to do all this stuff. And but Chris stuffed he tore up the arms of the chair and he stuffed the cotton in his ears. So when the teacup came, he didn't hear it. So he was faking being passed out.
And Jordan Peele, I read an interview with him, and he had said that they kind of threw that in ironically, like he's picking cotton in order to escape. He said they did that on purpose, like to be on the nose.
It didn't occur to me, but that makes sense.
Yeah,
pretty clever.
Yeah.
So he knocks out the brother. He hits him in the head with a I think it was a pool ball or one of the pool balls from the room or something.
Yeah, it was something like that.
And he hits him twice and knocks him out. And then he takes from the wall a mounted deer head, and he goes to where the father is, and the father's looking around, wondering why he's not there. And he runs the antlers right through the center of him.
Yeah, so he hits him and stabs him in like multiple places. Real good. Yeah.
And my first thought was Linnea Quigley up on the wall in Silent Night, Deadly Night. That was the other deer impalement that I
we put some up on the wall. Yeah, that's
But this was probably better.
Yeah. Those are the only two deer antler stabbings that I can think of.
There might be more, but those are the
I'm
first
sure
two
there's
that
a
come to
lot.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now he goes upstairs. He's trying to get out of there, and the mother confronts him. She's up there, and it's a cool scene where like they both look, and like the teacup is midway between them. And it's like in other movies, you see a gun on the ground, and both people go for it,
Yeah. They're looking at it. Yeah.
and they both
Teacup.
go, but Chris knocks it away and smashes it before she can get to it.
Hmm.
So it's just the two of them, and she picks up a letter opener or something, and she stabs it right through his hand, but he
Yeah.
holds it off, taking the pain, and he ends up stabbing her in the throat with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, all this
Yep.
is going on. Rose is upstairs listening to very white music, eating her dry Cheerios with a glass of milk to wash them down. And
Yeah.
she's on her computer searching profiles, looking for a new black man to
Yeah.
have a relationship with.
Yeah. She's looking for like athletes or something like that. And it's just, yeah.
For whatever reason, everybody downstairs is fighting for their lives. Her doing that in the midst of all that just was totally unsettling to me.
Yeah. It goes back to like her being such a psychopath, right? Like she's up there just calmly doing that. And they're just like downstairs doing brain surgery. And she's like, all right, I'll go do some new research while you guys do that. Yeah.
The depth of evil and the lack of humanity is just baffling.
She's one of the most evil characters. She's one of the most evil girlfriend characters in any movie I've ever seen.
So he's getting ready to leave now. He's basically eliminated the father and the mother, and he thinks he's got the brother knocked out, but the brother attacks him at the door and gets a rear naked choke on him,
Yeah.
and he's trying to choke him out. Chris manages to stab him in the knee to get the hold released, and then he just stomps him out, just like boots to the head.
Yeah.
But again,
just
that's off camera. You see,
but you see him like stomping into where his head would be, like from like you see his legs, you see Jeremy's legs like from one part of the wall, like from the doorway,
Yep.
and then you can just see him stomping into something. So
Yes.
you have an indication of how brutal it is. Yeah.
yeah, and it's brutal without showing it. And I thought they did that extremely well the whole movie. And to me, there's a great opportunity. I want to show a mashed head, and they show restraint that I probably don't have.
Yeah, you want to see the jaw snap and unhinge, and yeah.
Doesn't happen.
I don't think that was the audience for this horror type movie. I think they were looking for, there was that they wanted it to be slightly more general audience.
Yes,
they were going for that Academy Award.
and they reached a level of intelligence that most movies that stomp people's head and knock their jaws off don't ever strive for.
Right, and stabbing in the necks and antlers, and there's a lot of running people over with cars. There was a lot of viciousness in this movie. So. Yeah.
So after stomping him out, Chris takes his keys and he gets in his car and he calls 911. And while he's driving away, Georgina steps in front of him and he runs her down, not on purpose.
Right.
So
he's just panicking.
Yeah. He gets out and he picks her up and he puts her in the car with him. And as he's trying to leave, she comes to and she attacks him and the car crashes into a tree. And Georgina
says, dead. She's screaming, "You ruined my family! You ruined my family!"
Yeah.
And
we quickly find out why. She's dead now, and Chris is trying to get out of the car, and Rose is shooting a rifle at the car. She's now aware. She heard everything going on, and now she's involved. And she says that he killed Grandma. And now understanding this process, you understand that the grandparents were put into the bodies of these poor, unsuspecting people who were abducted.
And then you think back to the gardener who was running, and it makes sense because when the dad is giving him a tour to the house, he shows pictures of the grandfather. He's like, yeah, my father used to run. He actually competed against Jesse Owens. Like he was a college runner. And so you see that Gardner is running and training all the time because he still likes to run in a young person's body.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted the young persons as well.
Yeah, he
So
said he
was really-
lost the Olympic trials to finish second to Jesse Owens.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to talk about how noble it was for Jesse Owens as a black man to go run in front of the Nazis and show them all they were full of crap, which I do believe is one of the greatest athletic achievements in the history of the world. And when you think about the pressure in that scenario, but there's more of the like, you know, hey, I like Tiger Woods, I like Obama kind of.
It's more of that subtly when you go back watch the movie a second time. Yeah, this is a movie you have to watch twice. You know?
Yeah. And Rose tells Grandpa to go get him, and we see him come running around the corner, and he's taking off after Chris, and he attacks Chris, and he's got the upper hand. He's a big, strong dude, whoever's body Grandpa is in.
Yeah.
But Chris pulls his camera out of his pocket or his phone, and he gets him, takes a picture of him, gets the flash in his eyes. And Grandpa stands up, and Rose comes up, and he says, "Let me do it." And he takes the rifle from Rose, but instead of shooting Chris, he shoots Rose in the stomach and then turns it upon himself and puts it under his chin, and it was his escape.
Yeah, which that to me is the most unrealistic part of the movie, not the mind control or anything like that. But whenever I need my phone camera to work, it takes me 3 minutes. I'm like, wait, hold on. I have to, like, I won't open up properly, and won't swipe it, and I finally get it up there, but he just pulls it up and click.
It's got a shortcut button, and he's a photographer.
I need a shortcut.
So now it's just Chris and Rose is gut shot, and Chris is choking her out, trying to end her for good because she's still talking. And a cop car pulls up, and he lets go. He doesn't choke her out, and he stands up and he puts his hands up, and there's dead people all over the place. He's bloody. Again, it's not a very bloody movie, but he certainly is showing signs of struggles.
Yeah.
And it's Rod in his TSA car, and he gets in, and they leave together.
Yeah, he's like, I told you.
Jordan Peele's original ending, I heard him talk about a couple different endings. He was going to have it be the cops because remember Chris had called 911.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and Chris was going to be arrested for the murder of all these white people.
Right.
And there was also he considered an ending where being bloody and even with his hands up that Chris was shot by the cops.
Mm.
But it was kind of right in the middle of a lot of those things in the news, and he didn't want it to take away from the full real experience. Real experiences.
And turn it into a somewhat of a negative commentary where it's more divisive. That was a smart choice, I think. Not just that, but people want to cheer for someone to win in the end. You know, It kind of makes the movie more enjoyable. You know,
studios always want a happy ending, and
you want Paul Sheldon to survive, right? Like in their misery. You know what I mean? Like you want the last girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre to get out of there. You know what I mean? Like you just it kind of. There are certain movies that are tragedies that I love. I'm always down for a good tragedy here and there. But a movie like that, like I think if you looked at all three viewings, you'd probably say that was the best one. You know what I mean? Like
and it doesn't wrap it up like it's known he was there. Like they're going to be talking to him, right? He's not getting in that car and disappearing forever.
Right. Well, and his friend had already gone and talked to the cops.
Right.
So the whole
But it you know that kind of minutia really isn't relevant to the story at hand. And I thought it was a good ending. I do think those others may have drawn negative attention, and I think if you watch this with an open mind, and again, I wouldn't pretend to understand the Black experience in America. I think you get what he's trying to say.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think it does it very effectively, and it's like not pretentious or anything. It's actually it's I just think it's very well done.
Yeah, when he stands up, when he lets go of Rose, and you see the lights, and he stands up and puts his hands up, you are genuinely fearful for him because you think he's screwed.
Yeah, and the way they pace it throughout the whole movie is just fantastic. It's very, very subtle pacing, and it just kind of keeps growing. It starts off with just subtle things, and then becomes like more like inert as far as like just pushing the tension forward. And I think that's one of the best things the movie does.
Yeah, and I this to me falls more in the pure horror than our first film did. Again, that was a little sci-fi, a little humor, making a very broad point. This is making definitely strong social commentary, but woven into a great horror story too.
Yeah, with great tension and like you said, the great horror, like the great mind control, and not just mind control, but taking over someone's body, right? Like brain transplant, reanimator type stuff. You know what I mean. So it's very cool. I think it hits on a lot of different horror devices, like you said, and it puts them together effectively.
Yes, very much so. And that's our topic here. The more I thought about this, and the more when I was making notes on these movies, it's just, wow, that's like one of the worst things that could happen to you is have somebody take over your mind, and control you. It would be terrible.
And you're still aware of it. You're in some sunken place where you're still aware of it. Yeah, that's it's absolutely horrifying.
You could make a case that nowadays that half the world is being mind controlled by different things right now, and I probably wouldn't argue with you very much either.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure there are people who spend their entire college career getting PhDs on propaganda and manipulation, and consumerism, and yeah, that's been studied. There's a lot of books on that if you want to go look into it.
Politics in America, in the last 12 years have become it's just there's a lot of situations where one of the greatest things we have being sentient beings is our ability to have conscious thought, rationalization, and reason in our minds. And there's people at work trying to take that away now, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The Moon quote where he said the medium is the message, right? And so like what he was saying, I think back in the 1950s when he said that was, you're not watching the TV show Friends. You're watching commercial ads, and they're allowing you to watch Friends just so you'll watch their advertisements. Because without those companies paying for the advertisements, like getting paid for the advertisements, there's no funding for that TV show.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is actually watching advertisements, and in between the advertisements, you get a little reward of watching this comedy show for 7 minutes. Like here's your reward now. Watch our advertisement. Right. So the real message is the medium that's pushing it forward. Right. And which is a really deep thought. And you kind of see that everywhere you go. You can't drive down the highway without seeing a billboard. It's like, hey, don't look at your cell phone while you're driving, but also look at our advertisement on the billboard while you're going 70 miles an hour. It's like, as long as the state's making money off it, right? Or some kind of company,
Be safe, but you may want Bojangles, in the next mile.
Also, there's McDonald's. Yeah. But buy, consume, obey. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. John Carpenter had, and that was in the 80s, and like you said, it's relevant today.
Just as relevant today. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our episode, and we're not trying to tell you how to think. We're just telling you how we think. We appreciate independent thought and unique perspectives, and by all means, we always welcome for your feedback. So keep that in mind. No, we got nothing to sell here. We just enjoy talking to you about these movies.
Just enjoy good films and good conversation.
That's right. Well, we are the Weekly Horoscope. I am Jerry. That is Matt, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. Thank you, everyone.
Your Weekly Horoscope with Jerry and Matt.